pure and radiant. He wields love to shrive clean the hearts of men. There is nothing more terrifying.
I'm a bit concerned about the difficulty of the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. So, I'm going to be straightforward here. Whilst I'm really hyped for Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, I'm a bit concerned about how Fromsoftware has handled the DLC's difficulty and progression. Now, I know this is going to be a controversial take, so I want to make it clear right off the bat that I'm not talking about the fact that it will be hard. It's DLC for a Souls game, for fuck's sake. And that's a given, and I expect to have my ass handed to me before I learn the new mechanics properly. And still have my ass handed to me. This is also not some fear-monger from some Soulsborne noob, who despite having over 700 hours in Elden Ring, still struggles how to parry and sometimes overextend his combos. Yeah. Enough said, I am new to the Soulsborne games, if that wasn't obvious, and yeah, I do die a lot. But despite this, I have loved the gameplay loop of this game. It might not be for everybody, but I've always loved the idea of carefully analysing an enemy's movements, and spotting and exploiting those small openings to do damage. Elden Ring just invokes the feeling I missed since I was a kid. The feeling of being able to work at a boss, like a puzzle. That was something I felt while playing Spiral or Rayman back in the day. And yeah, even though those game series are pretty easy in comparison, I still felt the same back then because, well, I was a young kid who very much struggled with those games, despite how they were targeted towards my age group. No joke, sometimes it would take me months, or even years, to improve enough to get past specific sections that I found difficult. I mention this because despite what a lot of people seem to say, difficulty is in fact pretty much subjective, especially in the gaming landscape. No matter how you slice it, the fact is that some people will find certain things easier than others, and others will find certain things harder. Believe it or not, I found that Command Denial was easier for me than for some people who I consider to be really good at this game, where, in contrast, I was struggling innately with bosses that they found easy like Godfrey or Radigan. I was even one of the people that found serenity in fighting Melania. Yeah, sometimes I got unbelievably mad at her, but other times I found that staying calm and focusing on my slow, defensive strategy gave me a lot of relaxation fighting her. Seriously, it's like playing a game of chess if you play it slow. Granted, most chess matches don't entail you getting stabbed in the heart, but you get what I'm saying, right? What I'm saying is that freedom of combat and different ways people play this game are the real determining factor of what kinds of difficulties each individual will face. And that's why, honestly, I love RPGs overall. And I think the reason why Elden Ring has been so successful is because it just does such a good job of this, amplifying this kind of challenge philosophy right up to 11. There are weaknesses and strengths to every enemy, and sometimes using the most broken weapon or spell just won't provide the same satisfaction or even efficiency as finding said weakness. It's really a good balance that, while I think they haven't perfected it exactly, it's still definitely a rewarding and engaging system which most players will be able to get behind. Which is why I'm concerned about the DLC difficulty so much. Oh god, I'm gonna be crucified for this. Okay, let me bring a little bit of context. Before I played Elden Ring, I've always just been so terrified of Souls games because of their just insane reputation. I have some deep, serious anxiety issues, and I was always afraid that playing a Souls game would just push my mind over the edge into a real horrible place that I didn't want to go. And to some degree I was right. Mostly talking about Radahn and Melania here.
Let your flesh be consumed by the scarlet rot.
But I've been able to push through those anxieties since then and won't get good. Which is a stupid sentiment, by the way, since honestly, there's an overwhelming amount of aspects of the game you can get good at. Like, I am actually pretty decent at the stealth aspect in this game. And yes, I am also fully aware that all of the NPCs in Elden Ring are half blind and half deaf, but just give me this, please. Please. Okay. Anyway, the reason why I'm so concerned about how they handle the difficulty of Shadowoftheerdtree so much is because, well, the way I like to play this game is most likely very different from how the majority of people played this game. See, I've never been too fond of builds, and the way I played Elden Ring and been playing this game was by leveling up my attributes evenly. Yes. Evenly.
What? How can you do this? This is outrageous. It's unfair.
Yeah, I'm insanely stupid, I know. But the reason why I did this was not to be overpowered or overleveled, but simply because of how I like to experience these kind of games. See, quite simply, I'm a little experimenter. That's what I find fun, and within my time in my first playthrough, I just didn't want to be locked out of any options simply because I didn't have the stats or correct setup. In RPGs, I want my journey to truly be my own, and to be able to work with everything a game has to offer. I want to see all the work, or at least a lot of the work that a developer puts into the game, not just the core gameplay or basic features alone. And yes, I could make a new character or use a larval tier to respec, but that just doesn't have the same feeling to me. Starting from scratch doesn't really have the same sense of discovery or the same sense of progression. It just feels like I'm handicapping myself, restarting my progress and cutting off experimental combo possibilities for the sake of trying a different playstyle that I might like. And I've tried this. I made a different character, and I just couldn't recapture the same enjoyment because I realized how much I'd have to redo just to access the multiplayer alone. And yeah, it could be just because I'm lazy or I just don't properly understand what drives other Soulsborne players to do this. I understand that there's a meta, and if you want to do challenge runs, that's the best way to do it. I'm actually attempting a level 1 challenge myself, and it's actually a lot of fun. But, I mean, you can change your appearance and name in the same save file at any time, and even save presets, which is very much appreciated, by the way, from software. But, you see my point, right? Look, maybe I'm misunderstanding how most people approach this game, but it just seems to me like that's the case. Like, people just start with new characters and just go with builds that they either find on the internet or just make up themselves, which is a fun way, but it just looks so tedious to me. And this makes me wonder, how are they going to address higher level characters in the DLC without disrupting this balanced freedom that they have in the game already? How can players like me can still experiment without restrictions whilst still maintaining a satisfying sense of progression and improvement? Am I making any sense? I hope I'm making sense. I really do. I'm just slightly worried that the progression system Miyazaki alluded to in his interview might just punish players for having a higher level rather than provide a genuine challenge, and might artificially just slow down progression for those people. And yeah, I admit, I'm worried, due to the fact that I'm level 630 going into New Game Plus 2. Yes, I am overcompensating a bit for my lack of skill. I'm not denying that, but I just hope they don't go down the route of, you're over-leveled, so you have to deal with X, Y, and Z for the entirety of the DLC, because that makes it less challenging and more frustrating in my opinion. And on the other hand, I hope the progression system Miyazaki implemented is not entirely inconsequential in comparison to the current leveling system, making progression and exploration seem basically redundant. So, here's the kind of progression system that I'm hoping for in the DLC. I'm hoping for a progression system that starts with lowering your power by a certain percentage regardless of your level. Then you would have to seek out these kind of collectible currency apart from runes to slowly lower that percentage as you explore the DLC. Say you would start with 60 to 50% of your original stats being nerfed, and with each of this currency you earn, you reduce that nerf by 1%, thus retaining progression through the act of restoring your original power. Quite frankly, I think this would heavily encourage exploration whilst still maintaining the challenge design philosophy that Miyazaki has. Now, I'm not implying this system should replace traditional rewards like Ashes of War or cool nifty weapons and spells. No, not at all. I'm just saying that there could be additional rewards to put in the world to facilitate exploration, not as a progression replacement. Look, I'm no game designer, and there probably would be problems with this idea, but I do think this system would work for both casual and hardcore audiences alike. What I don't want to happen is that the new progression system getting tied to specific items or events, that probably wouldn't be the best approach towards the game because it's designed from the ground up to be an open, exploratory experience. One thing I've noticed about Elden Ring is that it's, well, not exactly completely open.
Sacrilege! Sacrilege! The fire of heaven will strike you down!
At least compared to other open world games that I played. See, most successful open world games like Breath of the Wild or the Assassin's Creed games, yes, I know, the Assassin's Creed games are cringe, I've got over that phase in my life, let's move on, pretty much let you go anywhere off the bat, or at least very early on, whereas Elden Ring does gate you several times for the latter half of the game. Now, these are not heavy gates, so to speak, and unless you're trying to get into the Mountain of the Giants, Mikla's Erdtree, or Crumbling Farum Azula, there are multiple methods you can use to get to certain areas. Do note, I'm not highlighting this as a bad thing. I actually consider it good design. In fact, I'm quite the fan of Pokemon Legends Arceus that uses an open area design rather than an open world design. This works well for that game, as the somewhat open but somewhat linear gameplay allows for both natural progression of carefully crafted story beats and the progression of the level range of Pokemon from area to area. Now, is Elden Ring an open area game? No. I would classify it as an open world game, but that doesn't mean this kind of design process isn't tied into it. In fact, there are lots of smaller areas that are in fact quite linear. And this is what worries me about the DLC. Look, Shadow of the Erdtree is clearly open world-ish. Well, it's obvious from the trailer that indeed it is following the same design patterns from the main game. Otherwise, that would really be disjointing for players. What I'm actively worried about is the fact that they might have prioritized linear progression when designing the difficulty for the DLC, instead of growing stronger through exploration. And there has been a lot of occasions where that hasn't worked well in a lot of open world games. Not bad, but not great. I'm worried because I can tell Miyazaki prefers story and lore over, well, practicality when it comes to certain game mechanics. And there's nothing wrong with that, it's just... Ugh, who am I kidding? Fucking multiplayer system is the most convoluted bullshit I've ever seen. But seriously, what I'm saying is that I respect Miyazaki for weaving lore with the mechanics for the sake of expanding the story within Fromsoft games. I just hope he didn't get too fixated on the story when designing the DLC, and kept the key aspects of what makes Elden Ring great on a gameplay level. I'm just hoping he didn't go forward and designed it his way to be a super hard challenge that you have to play a certain way to succeed. Okay, I highly doubt that's the case, but yeah, I am a bit concerned that he may have sacrificed player freedom and divergent thinking for the sake of that feeling of overcoming a great struggle. And because I'm quite simply a dumbass who doesn't really know that much about how Miyazaki works in the gaming industry, I don't really know if Miyazaki understands that everybody struggles differently in these games, or that he thinks that his games just provide the same difficult struggles to all those who play them. To be honest, I love, and sometimes hate, Elden Ring. It's an apocalyptic dark fantasy open world RPG from a franchise I'm so sad I didn't get into sooner. I think I might have Stockholm Syndrome now. And I'm so happy that there's going to be this amount of content coming to the game. I'm just praying that they didn't neuter the things I love about it in the DLC for the sake of Soul's idealism for invoking the feeling of overcoming a struggle. Also, by the way, if there's no fairy bait like live, I'm gonna have to rate it a 0 out of 10. Bye! Okay, I realized this video might have come across a bit negative, and I really didn't want to do that. I'm really just so passionate about this game. I really enjoy it. It's something I've always kind of dreamed about, sort of like a open world apocalyptic dark fantasy RPG. I know that's a really random sort of kind of it's just a really random kind of wish to have for a game, but yeah, it's just the game I've always wanted to sort of play, and I'm just really passionate about it, and I really want to enjoy it to the best that I can. Sorry, this part's a little bit improvised and a bit sporadic, but I just hope I've gotten across what I actually mean, and I don't mean to insult any players, or I don't mean to insult the fans. I don't mean to, criticize Miyazaki for his hard work and his absolute dedication to his vision. I just really, really appreciate this game, and I want to enjoy it as much as I can. Okay, I've said my piece. Bye.
I have to go soup up my hot rod.